Welcome to The Explainer. This is where we cut through all the noise and really try to connect the dots on the stories that are shaping our world.
Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the big picture, global tensions rising, and then zoom right into Turkey's political pulse. From there, we'll look at the economy's wild balancing act, our crazy tech-driven future, and then we'll wrap it all up with a look at our culture and the one big takeaway.
So first up, let's talk about global tensions. We're looking at a world stage where things feel, well, pretty tense. The language is sharp, the stakes are incredibly high, maybe higher than they've been in a long, long time.
Yeah, we are always ready. That's a direct quote from Vladimir Putin. I mean, talk about a chilling warning to Europe. That kind of statement just cranks up the heat on the global stage. There's really no misunderstanding what he means by that. And it's not just words, right? We're seeing all these moves on the diplomatic chessboard. And frankly, they're all over the place. You've got Russia apparently saying no thanks to a peace plan from Donald Trump. At the same time, Trump is reportedly making some pretty bold demands of other leaders. And while all this is going on, what's Germany doing? They're firing up their new missile defense system. It's a huge signal that, countries are getting ready for the worst even while they're hoping for the best.
Okay, so that's the big global picture. Now, let's zoom in a bit and see how all that pressure is playing out on a national level. Specifically, let's look at the political pulse in Turkey.
So, you've got President Erdogan talking about a new process. He's actually referencing something from back in 2013, a peace process, and he's saying, we will succeed this time. The goal? A terror-free Turkey. And at the same time, we're hearing whispers that Turkey might reopen its border with Armenia. I mean, that would be a huge shift in the region.
And if you want to know how serious they are about this, just listen to this quote. "The arrow has left the bow, the ships have been burned, there is no return." Wow. That's from MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli, a really key political ally. It basically says, we're all in, there's no turning back now. But inside Turkey, it's a bit of a push and pull. On one hand, you have this talk of a new regulation that could mean amnesty for certain crimes. A journalist, Furkan Karabay, was even released. But then, on the other hand, you have another journalist, Fatih Altaylı, saying his sentence is completely political. And a proposal to make trials of politicians more transparent? Rejected. So you see this weird mix of opening up and cracking down, all at once. All right, let's pivot from politics to the economy. Because here, the numbers on paper are telling one story, but what people are actually experiencing seems to be something else entirely. So you look at the headline number, and it looks pretty good, right? 3.7% economic growth for the third quarter. You'd think, hey, the economy's growing, things are solid. But that's really only one part of the picture. Because, and this is a big because, that growth is happening alongside some seriously high inflation. We're talking over 31% for the year. That's the number people actually feel in their wallets every single day. It's what's hitting the cost of, well, everything. And you can see this split reality perfectly right here. The stock market, it's up 2%. Good for investors. But secondhand car prices? They're down 8% from last year. So what does that tell you? It suggests that while the big money might be optimistic, the average person's ability to buy big-ticket items is actually shrinking. And this confusing economic picture is leading to some major corporate shakeups. Look at this. Uber is jumping in, buying up Get Here's food delivery business. They're betting on the market. But Lipton, a brand that's been in Turkey for almost 40 years, is getting out. They're selling their factories. You've got two huge companies making completely opposite bets on where the Turkish economy is headed. And let's bring this down to the street level, to the real cost of living. A new report found that a single therapy session in Istanbul can now cost anywhere from 2,500 to 9,500 lira. That's just staggering. It puts essential mental health care completely out of reach for so many people. See, this is when inflation stops being a statistic and starts being a real problem for people's lives. So, what's being done about this? Well, the government is stepping in, at least in one area. The Ministry of Trade is looking to ban those mandatory service charges and table fees you see at restaurants. This could be the end of the service charge as we know it, which would definitely change how much you pay the next time you eat out. Okay, so you've got all this economic and political drama happening, but you know what's not slowing down for any of it? Technology. In fact, it's speeding up, and it's forcing us to ask some really, really big questions.
Like this one. Can an artificial intelligence be an inventor? Seriously, this isn't science fiction anymore. This is a real legal question that patent offices have to answer. If an AI comes up with an invention, who gets the credit? The person who programmed it or the AI itself? Well, we have an answer, at least in the US. The Patent Office just came out and said, nope, only human beings can be listed as inventors. That's a huge decision, and it's going to set the tone for how we deal with AI and new ideas for years to come.
But that ruling is happening while the tech world is just exploding with new stuff. I mean, think about it. Turkey just launched its first orbital vehicle. A new study shows that almost nobody can tell the difference between music made by a human and music made by AI. We're detecting lightning on Mars. But there's a flip side. One little software glitch in an Airbus can ground 6,000 planes. So yeah, the pace is incredible, but the risks are getting bigger too.
Okay, so for our last segment, let's tie everything together. We've talked about tension, a fast-moving economy, and mind-blowing tech. There's one cultural trend that feels like it's been born from all of this.
And that trend is perfectly captured by Oxford's Word of the Year for 2025, rage bait. And let's be honest, it's more than just a word, isn't it? It's basically the business model of the internet now. It's content that isn't made to make you think, it's made to make you angry. It takes all those tensions we talked about and uses them to get more clicks, more comments, more shares.
So that kind of leaves us with one last big question, doesn't it? In a world that's just full of this rage bait, where being loud and angry gets more attention than being thoughtful, how do we see what's really going on? How do we find the full picture? It's harder than ever, for sure, but it's also more important than ever.